Being a professor requires dedication not only in teaching, but also publishing. This past week, the Women and Gender Studies celebrated the achievement of 3 female professors in publishing their books. Dr. Melanie Holm with her book titled Mockingbird Technologies, Dr. Gloria Park with the book Where Privilege Meets Marginalization, East Asian Women Teachers of English, and Dr. Michelle Sandoff on experiences of Muslims serving in the U.S. military post 9/11. Each book has its uniqueness in the content as well as its connection to the readers.
So the book Mockingbird Technologies is it's an anthology of essays that comes from a conference that was in Toronto in 2013. It was the American Comparative Literature Association conference, and the process of this was a lot of discussion with colleagues, a lot of individual ideas germinating together, and then my co-director, Chris, he and I decided we should make it into a book. And so the process was, for me personally, a very long thought out process about thinking in very complex ways about how representation changes in different geopolitical positions.
Complexity of a selected topic seems to be what motivates Dr. Gloria Park as well. Dr. Park is also a program director for composition and applied linguistics in IUP. Especially looking at her heritage, her experiences influence her interest in her book.
I think that my book has a very in-depth understanding of how issues of privilege that we all experience, whether we're from East Asian or African or other countries, that the issues of privilege is intimately connected to how we experience different marginalized issues. So it's really about, not that I have a lot of privilege and a lot of marginalization, but how those two constructs coexist in the lives of women who happen to teach English as a second or additional language. And that's really the big part of my book.
The process of writing and completing the book is very challenging, from getting an idea, collecting information, to publishing the book.
So the process of doing the research for the book was actually quite challenging. So I came up with this idea. I realized I wanted to research Muslims in the United States. And I had this idea. I was going to a meeting with my advisor to tell him that this was my new idea. And I got off the bus and saw the newspaper headline because that was the day of the Fort Hood shooting. And that obviously had a big impact on both why I thought this research was really important, but it also made it or added to the difficulty of finding respondents because there was a lot of negative coverage going on about Muslims, particularly in the military, at the same time that I was trying to start this project. So I used word of mouth, I did flyers, I sent out emails, I sort of worked all of my personal networks and got all of my friends and colleagues to work their personal networks to find people who'd be willing to talk to me. And ultimately I got 15 people who are willing to sit down, take an hour or two of their time and share their story with me, which I really appreciate. I was actually stuck at 14 for a really long time and was doing an academic presentation about the research I'd done up to that point, and had a member of the audience raise their hand and say, actually, yeah, I got your email, but I had no idea who you were, so I wasn't going to participate. But now that I've seen you, now that I've heard what you're doing with this data, let's sit down and do an interview. And so my 15th interview was actually spur of the moment in a side room at a conference after someone heard me talk about the research and knew that I wasn't trying to distort anything or tell a negative story.
Despite different contents and processes that they went through, each author wished similar things from the readers who read their books.
It's our hope that readers who read our book will come away with a lot of questions rather than answers. The book is meant to be a provocation about how criticism is disseminated and to demystify the authoritative tone of the critic and instead create sort of a playful space for the reader to think through different ideas that aren't necessarily cohesive but that are problematic.
Dr. Botello, the director of Women and Gender Studies, who is also a distinguished university professor, described the effort to support faculties to be active in publication.
In order to motivate this group of faculty, you don't have to do much at all. They are an exceptional group of people already and in their own right.
These women, while in different fields of study, have all achieved something great in publishing books that they hope will have a positive impact on the field of women and gender studies. It is only appropriate that this happens so close to International Women's Day. Reporting for IUP-TV, I'm Peyton Markajon.